Salmello wandered in too. Hey, Salmello. Back with Angry Plays Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, The Return, Electric Boogaloo. See, it should be noted, if I haven't really talked about. Um, oh, Arl Ritchie is saying that that's funny, they're actually initials. So Richie is your last name and you use that as like your Twitter handle? Or your Twitch handle or whatever? In case I haven't discussed it, by the way, Metroid Prime is a separate trilogy. It's a side story to the original Metroid franchise, and there have been some implications by Yoshio Sakamoto, um, the creator of Metroid, or one of the. To be fair, Yoshio Sakamoto is not the only creator of the Metroid franchise, but Yoshio Sakamoto, who, wow, like after you say that name 3 or 4 times, it stops sounding real. Sakamoto has sort of implied, without outright saying, that he does not consider the Metroid Prime trilogy to be canon. Um, which is kind of funny because they also officially put it into the timeline. And I don't want to be one of these canon timeline purist arguing people, but I have never agreed with where it was ultimately placed in the canon. And if you look very clearly at the way the game was written, and a lot of the elements from the game, it's not. It's I don't buy the whole place that they put it. But we're not going to talk canon, okay? I'm not going to do that. I had my little rant. Instead, we're going to pick up where we left off with Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, the yada yada yada. So what happened was Samus Aran was sent after her mission on Talon 4, which was devastated by mysterious radioactive Phazon meteorite, and her encounter with Metroid Prime. She was sent to investigate the disappearance of a group of galactic marines who had been chasing space pirates. Both ships, the Galactic Federation ship and the Space Pirate ship, crashed on this mysterious planet, the planet Ether, and she discovered that planet Ether was devastated by a Phazon meteorite. And the Phazon meteorite caused the planet to split into 2 different dimensions, the normal dimension, or the light ether, and the dark dimension of dark ether. And the dark ether became home to the Ing, a race of evil counterparts to the Luminoth, the moth people who lived on light ether. And they began siphoning off ether's planetary energy in an effort to destroy light ether. So we have this gameplay mechanic where we switch back and forth between the light world and the dark world. And our mission is to go into the dark world, go to the dark temples, retrieve the planetary energy, and then bring it back to the light world counterpart. And so here we are now in the dark world, and one of the things we learned last time is that the dark world is extremely toxic, because it is basically gasified Phazon. And so whenever we're in the dark world, our health will drain unless we stay within these light crystals that were set down by the Luminoth so that they could explore the planet and fight the Ing. Ultimately, they lost, though, and all of the Luminoth except one have gone into hibernation, all the ones who weren't killed. We also picked up the Dark Beam last time, and that allowed us to power up portals to the Dark World, which will now allow us to get into, which now allows us to live in the Dark World. We also discovered that the space pirates have been raiding the Dark World for Phazon, because it is prevalent in the Dark World. The other thing is that Metroid Prime, at the end of the game, at the end of the first game, by absorbing part of Samus's life energy and part of her suit, has become Dark Samus and has been ravenously feeding on Phazon energy since then, including raiding the space pirates. So now we are in the Dark World equivalent of the room where we had to make the stepping stones on the out of the electrical. There was the bioenergy production center, and here in the Dark World, it is a Phazon site. And we find ourselves locked in this room because there is a door with three security gates or three security locks on it, and we have to locate all three of these little or the security switches and turn them all on to get out. And once we do that, we're gonna complete our loop through dark Dark Aegon Wastes here, and we're gonna get a new item, and then at that point, the mechanics of the game are going to be complete. That is, we're going to be exposed to the full range of light and dark mechanics at this point. Yeah, Arthur HS is saying, "Good job, we got the jump upgrade." Yep, exactly. That's how Metroid rolls. Get an upgrade to empower yourself to explore the world further. We also haven't been scanning much in here, and I did say that we were going to go for 100% scans, didn't I? So here in this room, we find... Oh, that's a space pirate who was killed by a phazon explosion and the dark atmosphere phazon of dark ether. And these things, I haven't scanned them yet, but these are actually an ing storage cache. They're called blade pods. Oh, and we found 40% of all the scans. Ali RPG, hello Ali. Ali RPG is asking, what system is this on? Originally, Metroid Prime was released on the GameCube, but I'm playing the high def remastering on the Metroid Prime trilogy, which is on the Nintendo Wii. Also, hello, thanks for stopping by. Moderators, Ali RPG is permanently on the Angry GM Not Hated list, so if she makes any crazy claims, specifically, if she claims at any point to be my fiance, don't ban her. She's unstable but harmless. What the hell is killing me here? Oh shit, I wasn't really paying attention. I'm gonna die in this room. We may have to restart already. See, the problem with Dark Ether is that it drains you very quickly of your health. You don't realize it, and you think you're sitting pretty on oh, but I got a bunch of health pickups all at once. You don't realize it, but it very quickly drains you of your health, and I think we talked about last time how that sort of works for and against the game. It works against the game in the respect that as an exploration-based game, the game wants you wandering around and exploring, and any moves off the beaten path are punished by draining you very quickly of your health. At the same time, it does create an extremely harmless or extremely hostile atmosphere, which the creators said is one of the things that they were going for. They wanted this to be the most dangerous planet that Samus has ever explored. And Samus has, she has always felt like she is in control of every environment she's on. The other thing is that in this room, we're introduced to these creatures, the Ing-Claws. And they actually make the atmosphere more poisonous in whatever room they're in. So you can see if we go outside the safe sphere, the light sphere, the room drains a lot more health, which is why I was dying so quickly here. The Ing-Claws are actually used. I'll talk about what the Ing-Claws actually do a little bit later on, because they do sort of prevent a little bit of sequence breaking in the game. But for the most part now, we're wandering through this is basically the space pirate base that we had wandered through, and now we're sort of wandering through it in reverse, and you sort of recognize a few landmarks. Like, in the Light World Space Pirate base, there was that tank full of phazon with the Metroids in it. And here in the Dark World version, we have this a similar tank full of phazon. And they try to do that in a lot of the spaces to just make this idea that you're moving back and forth between, to make it a little bit more obvious how the two places sort of mirror each other. The other thing is, okay, so we have a couple of other things going on here. First of all, this is the first area where we encounter the dark water. Hey, Imperial Star Destroyer. And this is actually kind of, this threw me. And we'll come back to why it threw me later on. But you cannot sink in the dark water. The dark water is too viscous, but it does actually have depth. Later on, when you gain the ability to survive in dark water, you discover that the dark water, there's actually a deep pool here. But right now, you just end up stuck on the surface. It kind of threw me off because there is... Did I miss something? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. So here we also have these pillars. This door is inaccessible to us because it is powered by light energy. And... Oh, I did pick up the Dark Beam last time. The Dark Beam is a weapon that is especially effective against light creatures. And it does have a limited ammo supply. And here I think we have, what? Light lift crystals, which are generated by dark-based or powered by dark-based weapons, of course. Because that's how light weapons work. Or light crystals work, by hitting them with dark energy. And by shooting the crystal, we lower the platform, which is then surrounded by these night barbs, which are creatures that are basically just there to get in the way of your shots so that you waste ammo and to make the jumping a little bit harder. And there's a second crystal up there that I guess it's around the other side. You know, light energy like a flashlight. Ah, there's the other crystal. So we'll clear out some of these night barbs. We'll fire at the crystal. Whoop. And that pulsing means that this light beacon... Remember, some of these beacons are temporary. They have to be energized by shooting at them. Now, the thing you might be asking at this point, because it was one of the things I did, is what happens when you reach this point and you need the dark beam to power up an environmental thing like that switch. I literally cannot proceed forward without powering up the switch, but I don't have any ammo for the dark beam. Well, they did create a failsafe in that if you have no ammo and you charge up the dark beam, you will fire one normal shot without ammo. So you can always fire off single shots, it just becomes a lot slower. It isn't effective at combat, but it still lets you use it as a key. Which still sort of makes you wonder why they went with the limited ammo mechanic. Though we are going to see kind of what they did to sort of... we'll talk about it in a second. Because here we find a dead Luminoth who has been dead for 1.2 decacycles. Matt the Warbo says light energy is the thing physicists came up with when they decided that dark matter and dark energy weren't confusing enough. So this guy was looted of all his gear. Remember, these Luminoth were like commandos. They were raiding the Dark World trying to defeat the Ing. And we find, very early in the game actually, we find the other beam weapon. So now we have both the light and the dark beam. And we also unlock the sketch package if we want to look at concept art. And we're also locked in this room because the door closes behind us and immediately forces us to use the light beam. Okay, so the light beam is very reminiscent of the plasma beam from the first Metroid game, or the first Metroid Prime game. And the dark beam is sort of functionally similar to the ice beam in that it will freeze powerful enemies. Of course, the light beam is powerful against dark enemies, and the dark beam is powerful against normal world enemies. The other interesting mechanic is that if you destroy something with the light beam, shit, I forgot about the knockback on those things, like these light bugs. If you destroy these light bugs with the dark beam, with the light beam, they are very likely to drop dark ammo. If you destroy something with the dark beam, it is very likely to drop light ammo. So using one beam causes the other type of ammo to drop. This also extends to crates. So you can see that that guy dropped dark ammo there because I blasted him with the light beam. The dark beam can also, or the light beam can also be fired charged up, and it will fire a blast that does the equivalent of 10 normal shots worth of damage, but it does take five shots to fire it powered, charged up. It will also energize these light crystals, which means that any ing or dark creatures that blunder into the protection zone will be killed as long as the crystal remains energized, and it will have the same effect on these the light beacons. You can see how there's sort of a yellowish glow to that light because it's now been energized. And the dark beam, of course, I think we already did this, but the dark beam will nullify beacons and it will nullify crystals. If you're going for 100% scans, know that nullified crystals, nullified beacons, energized crystals, and energized beacons are all separate scans. So you'll want to go for them all. The ammo benefit, also if you're going for 100% scans in this game, these creatures are unique. They only appear here. And they exist basically to force you to use the light beam just a little bit more, because that's how Metroid does things. We give you a tool and then we're going to force you to use it over and over again until you learn how to use it. But knowing that the light beam will cause crates and enemies to drop dark ammo, and the dark beam will cause crates and enemies to drop light ammo, allows you to kind of keep your ammo in balance by switching back and forth between the beams. It does also mean that sometimes you end up in a position where you're fighting enemies with the wrong beam, and that is actually sort of important later on, because we're going to find some dark enemies against whom paradoxically the dark beam is more effective than the light beam. The light beam, I'm going to show it off here, also seeks enemies. So it has sort of the wave beam property. Just that at least the powered up version seeks enemies. And while we're here, we also discover another Dark Temple key. Remember, we need a total of 3 Dark Temple keys in order to get into the Dark Temple itself. Which will allow us to retrieve the energy for the light temple again. And that sort of establishes the other structure, the other pattern of this game, which is, generally speaking, after you find a power-up... I wasn't standing in the light energy. I'm going to go down here and blast some of the blade pods with my dark beam to refill my light ammo, because my light ammo is getting low. The other thing you might notice, if you're very attentive, is that you draw in ammo pickups, both light and dark, from a much greater distance than you draw in other power-ups. So that in combat, if you are generating ammo, you pick it up very quickly. They were clearly trying to sort of... I think what was happening was that they were trying to strike a balance between this desire for using the ammo mechanic to force you to maintain a balance between light and dark. Because you use the light beam to make dark ammo and the dark beam to make light ammo. And they clearly wanted that to be sort of a thematic element of the game. But at the same time, they didn't want to create a situation where you were ever starved for the ammo you really needed. Um, and so they did that in a couple of ways. One was that you always have the option to fire a charged shot, a normal shot, even if you don't have any ammo. I'm out of health here. It should be fine. The other thing is that the game is very, the other, blah, what am I trying to say? Sorry. So they were trying to strike this balance between the thematic element of light and dark in balance and the frustration of running out of ammo. Whoops. The other thing is you got to be careful not to accidentally fire through your beacon at a dark door, thus nullifying it. And so here in this room, you can see I actually blew apart that creature by just energizing the beacon with the light ammo. And you can see how many extra shots it takes to kill a dark enemy. So it's use light against dark, use dark against light, very obviously. But as I said, now the game sets up this pattern of it just gave us the key that I just picked up. Should have picked up my first time through the room, because once you have the space jump, you can grab it. And this one is obviously the key that's right down there is accessible using the light beam to get through those light doors. So although the keys are kind of a scavenger hunt, they're not a terrible scavenger hunt in that they're generally laid out pretty obviously on the path before you. And you get them almost immediately after you get the power-up that you require for them. So now, once we grab this key, we'll be able to enter the Dark Temple and get the energy controller back, or the energy back from Aegon. But, oops. The Warrior Ing swallowed the key. This fight actually serves a couple of neat purposes. This is you have fought single Warrior Ing before now. Oh, also, this is a unique scan. I believe it only covers this one door to lock you into the boss fight. Now, we've fought these Warrior Ing a couple of times before, but we've always fought them one at a time, or at most we've had to deal with 2. We've never had to deal with 4 of them, and they're pretty powerful opponents. And you can see that they're trying to possess me. But they are quite vulnerable to the light beam. Especially a charged up light beam shot. So this fight is sort of forces you to discover how much better the light beam is against dark opponents. It's just another way that the game is using an encounter to teach you, basically to make you recognize how its mechanics work. Of course, now I've depleted my my light ammo, but we'll go ahead and hope some more spawns out of these crates, and some more won't. Fantastic. So we're going to have to fight the last... I think there's one... Oh, no, there's 2 left. But he's standing right next to that beacon. So we did some damage with him by triggering the beacon. I do like the fact that the Ing are not smart enough to avoid the radius of the beacons when they're not activated. So that you can use that you can use that little trap of they're standing next to a beacon, you can activate it at that point. Whoop, and that guy gave me some light energy. One of the things this game is actually really smart about is dropping power-ups or dropping pickups. So you'll notice that as your health gets lower and lower, the game tends to drop more and more health pickups and more high-level health pickups. like ultra energy and super energy or whatever the hell they're called. Where are you? So now I'm out of light energy again, but I can at least fire off single shots. You also get that cool disintegration effect when you shoot them with the light beam. And now I can proceed forward from here. Oh, R.L. Ritchie is asking about the item acquisition sound. Is that the same sound as Super Metroid? Yep, that da 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 has actually been the same item acquisition sound from the first Metroid game. And actually there's a couple of other little musical motifs that have been carried through the series. Samus's theme, the music she makes when you first join the game, that's sort of Samus's intro music. And I think in certain rooms in this game, the item room theme from other Metroid games plays. So now we have picked up all 3 keys, and we can get into the Dark Temple and pick up all of the stolen planetary energy from the Ing and bring it back to Light Ether. But before we do that, we're going to do what is standard for Metroid games. We're going to use our newfound pickups to go collect some items that we might have missed. So the first thing we need, though, is we need a way back to the light world. Because I don't think I mentioned it, but so this is the portal that I came through to get to the Dark World. But many of the portals are only present in one world. They're one-way portals. So this portal from the light world to the dark world doesn't go back the other way. And that sort of the blue pattern on the walls, it sort of looks like, remember in the Terminator movies when the Terminator materialized in that sphere, the time travel sphere, it would leave this sort of cutout sphere from whatever you material. Would you leave me alone? I'm trying to describe something cool here. So this sort of sphere of removed matter that's directly in front of me that I'm pointing at with a charged power beam, it represents the landing site for a portal from the other world. Okay, so that sort of helps you recognize, it sort of helps you put together the geometry of the game. Which is important because the light world and the dark world do not actually match up exactly. They're close, but there are some... The dark world is a little bit more limited than the light world. There's less rooms on the light world in the dark world side than on the light world side. And one of the interesting things too is that you actually can't get back to the hub world in the dark world. So, like, the way this game is set up is that there is this is an ammo station, which allows you to refill all of your ammo, which, light beam, dark beam. I think it also refills missiles and power bombs when we get them. But don't quote me on that. So one of the interesting things is that the dark world is really sectioned off. Okay, unlike the light world, which is... Whoops, I didn't mean to walk back into that. So the light world has a hub world, which is the Sky Temple grounds that we started out in. That's where we landed and we found all the dead galactic marines. And then it's got the travel between the dark world areas of the game. So the dark world is very much segregated. It's schismed off. Like if we look at the dark world map, there is no way to get out of here. It's all. Oh, you can. Yeah, you can't quite see that. Though I should go back and get that. I'll go back and get that. There's one item. The Dark World is also set up that way. The Dark World also has three, this central world, which is the Dark Temple, and then the three sort of the three areas of the game. But you cannot travel between the Dark World areas of the game. So the Dark World is very much segregated. It's schismed off. Like if we look at the Dark World map, there is no way to get out of here. It's all. Oh, you can. Yeah, you can't quite see that. Though I should go back and get that. I'll go back and get that. There's one item that I can grab on that side, but. And here we see a light world portal, which we can activate with the light beam. And that will take us back to the light world. And it'll take us back specifically into the Dynamo, the pirate power plant. The space pirate power plant here. Where we fought Dark Samus. Okay. So, and there's actually a really... And in fact, the whole structure of the game is a little bit different. Because although, Metroid has always been about these interconnected areas that reveal how interconnected they are gradually as you play. So even though, like in Metroid Prime, there were, 5 areas? There's Talon Overworld, Magmore Caverns, Chozo Ruins, Phazon Mines, Phendrana Drifts, and the Impact Crater. And there were multiple ways to get from one to the... Oh, and the wrecked ship. The downed space pirate frigate. And there were multiple ways to go back and forth between the worlds, and you found yourselves traversing between them a lot. In this game, you generally go to one area, and you pretty much go through it to completion. There are a few places where you do end up backtracking to previously explored areas, but for the most part, you go to Aegon Wastes, like we have. You explore it super thoroughly. Whoops. And the Metroids from the Biological Research Center have gotten free now. And now here I can actually show off the ice beam effect of the dark beam, because it will freeze enemies in place. And then if you blast them with a missile, they will shatter just like they were frozen. So functionally, it's similar, which makes it a very effective way of taking out the Metroids. So yeah. So this game, like I said, is structured very differently in the fact that you go to one world and then you pretty much explore back and forth between the light world and the dark world, gradually opening up both to exploration with the power-ups until ultimately you can get into the Dark Temple, collect the light energy, and bring it back to the Light Temple where it belongs. And that's sort of the structure of the whole game. Now, to some extent, that sort of runs counter... You might say that runs counter to the whole Metroid experience. Except that, obviously, it's still very much exploration-based gameplay, and the whole gradually opening of areas and being able to explore more and more of the game as you gain more and more power-ups is still there. It's just done in more manageable chunks. And part of the reason for that is because the light world, dark world mechanic effectively doubles the amount of world you have to explore. And because, it becomes sort of tough to differentiate the different areas, because in a lot of places the dark world and light world are geographically very similar to one another. So it's harder to kind of remember the places you've been in both versions of the game, and to sort of navigate, because there's all these puzzles about places in the Dark World you can only reach through certain Light World portals, and places in the Light World you can only reach by coming back through certain ways in the Dark World. And if they had tried to build the game that was as wide open as Metroid Prime or Super Metroid, with that dual world mechanic, it would have been extremely overwhelming. So they decided, at least this is my theory, I can't prove this is actually what they did, but it seems to me that it was a design decision centered around, how can we make the world more manageable to explore while still keeping the dual world set up. Ah, damn it. Come back down, lift. Okay, and it's sort of similar to certain other innovations in the series have sort of been driven by changes in the way the game was played. For example, Metroid 2: The Return of Samus, it sectioned off the world into levels, and it also introduced save points rather than a password system. And the reason it did that is because it was the first Metroid game. Well, obviously, it was the second Metroid game ever. And we're going to use the light beam to destroy some crates to get some dark ammo here. It was the second Metroid game ever, obviously, so it's hard to say that patterns had been established in the way the games worked. But at the same time, the reason that it made those choices is because it was for the Game Boy, which was a portable system, and people tended to play portable systems in shorter sittings. And the game needed to be broken down into more manageable chunks, and you needed to be able to stop playing periodically. So, Metroid Fusion became much more mission-based because, again, it was on a portable system, and you tended to play in shorter chunks. Now, if you remember from last time, by the way, this is the exterior of the Space Pirate base, and these are the turrets that the Space Pirates manned against me. And we can now use the turret to make a few discoveries. So, for example, these skiffs that are on this landing platform, we can blow up the landing platform. I thought we could. We gotta blow up that power generator, and then it'll drop the skiff. We can blow up that power generator over there, and blast a passage open. And we can blow up that power generator far back there. And we see that the pirates do not like that we are in their turret and come and try to fight us off. I actually like this. You only do this once in the game. These turrets are unique to this one spot, but it is kind of cool that you can subvert their gun turrets and use them against them. I really dig that. It just sort of cements, like, all of the pirate lore talking about Samus is all about how much Samus wrecks the Space Pirate shit, which is really awesome as a player to read. And then on top of that, you get Dark Samus also wrecking the Space Pirates. So in the end, a lot of the Space Pirate logs are basically about, two hunters. So this is where the Space Pirates finally figured out that Dark Samus is not Samus. Remember that Dark Samus had been breaking into their base and stealing all their Phazon and killing them. But now this log talks about Samus landing on the planet. Horrific as it may sound, there are two of them now. We are bracing for a new assault. This dire turn of events may bear some goodwill. One of our scouts in Dark Ether saw a curious encounter. The Dark Hunter attacked the one clad as Samus near the Phazon site. Perhaps they are not... Perhaps they're not allies, but foes. Oh, RebGary07 is reminding me that there are those turrets in Sanctuary Fortress. Thank you, that's right. There are just outside the fortress. Perhaps we can forge an alliance with Dark Hunter and exchange Phazon for the head of our common enemy. Yeah, we will find out that deal actually doesn't work out so well, though in Prime 3, things are a little bit different. So this space pirate shield we cannot get through, but because we blew up that one generator back here, we left a tunnel, and we pick up our first beam ammo expansion. Which just adds the beam ammo expansions add another collectible to the game. So you have the energy tanks, you have the missile expansion packs, power bomb expansions, and now we have beam ammo expansions. There's a total of 4 beam ammo expansions in the game. So you start off with a capacity for 50 ammo of each, light and dark, and then each one gives you 50 more, so you can get up to a total of 250. This is another dead Luminoth from one of the cadre, which they're calling the Key Bearers, and we still don't know what this is about. So we'll have to wait until later to find out what's going on there. You know. So at this point now, except for mopping up and picking up a couple of remaining items, which I think I actually might have missed something. No, though I'm not sure. No, it's in the Dark World that I'm. No, I don't know. I might have missed something, but I don't think I did. Never mind. Oh, I know what I'm thinking of. Don't worry about it. Okay, so now at this point, apart from... So these being light pirates, we could take them out fairly easily with the dark beam. Because everything from the light world, even the pirates, are light. But now our goal is going to be to reach the Dark Temple. That is... Whoops. I wanted the lower door. That is the Aegon Temple in the Dark World, which is where the Ing are storing some of the stolen energy. And I keep referring to the stolen planetary energy. And the Luminoth... It's actually sort of buried in all the lore. If you read through all the Luminoth lore, one of the things that happened was that the Luminoth were going through an energy crisis. They had used up too much of their own energy, and they generated a variety of different types of energy. If you scan the energy controllers... Are you guys dark yet? No, you're still light. So they had used up too much of their own energy, which... What they were calling planetary energy is actually literally energy or electricity. And we're going to pop into the Dark World so that we can access the Dark Temple. And they refer to it as a mix of solar, biological, and geothermal energy. Which basically just means it was their electricity. And they were going through a power crisis. So they developed these energy collectors that would... that would gather up all the various different energy types, store it in one central location, and somehow, through the magic of magic, probably amplify it. And so they were just sitting around with their energy all stored away in these vats, and it was like all of the energy the planet had. So when the cataclysm happened and the Ing came... I don't need to fight all you guys. I'm just passing through. We're just gonna keep moving here. So when the Ing happened and decided to take out the Luminoth, they basically were just able to grab all of the Luminoth's collected energy because it was already stored in these convenient little vats for them. Actually, what actually happened is the story sort of suggests that in the schism that created Dark Ether and Light Ether, the energy was divided between the two planets. and it wasn't enough for either planet. So the Luminoths created basically the energy transfer module, and started invading dark ether to steal back the half of the energy that had vanished. And then the Ing got a hold of it because they killed the Luminoth commandos, and they used it to steal the Luminoth half of the energy, which is now why all the energy is located in the Dark World, and the planet is on the verge of pretty much dying. Well, and I had the wrong beam on and just nullified the beacon again. So here, this in the Light World, this is the passage that leads back to the Sky Temple grounds, and in the Dark World, it's collapsed. There is no way to escape Dark World Aegon. But the reason to come in here is because somebody hit a missile under it. The funny thing about this game is that it obviously it tried to be more story focused than Prime, which was already, I mean, Prime was already story focused enough. You know, compared to other Metroid games, there was a lot more story to Metroid Prime, because you had the meteorite, the experiments, the space pirate experiments on Metroid Prime, Metroid, the Chozo locking away the Phazon meteor, all that shit was all in the, you know. So there was already a lot of story to discover that was all told through the discoverable lore. And this story just greatly expands on it. But the funny thing is, a lot of the story in this game is sort of unnecessary. The Galactic Federation Marines, especially, that whole thing becomes sort of a red herring, because once you discover the Marines are dead, the whole Marine plot is just over with. We will not care any further about the Marines that lost their lives here from this point on. It's done. You know, so it really just served as an excuse to bring Samus to this planet so that she could discover this conflict going on. The thing with Samus's broken ship was just there to explain why she would explore long enough to have it suggested to her that she should defeat the Ing, because otherwise the Ing are probably going to start invading other planets. So, you know, and once she learned that from the Luminoth, she could get into the real plot of this game, which is all about the Luminoth Ing war and light and dark. What's really interesting, though, is that there is a save. There is actually a save station in this room that I was almost gonna miss. Which is good, because I lost a lot of health just dicking around. I'm moving much less cautiously than a player normally would. And honestly, even the space pirates in this game, they do not play a substantial role in the game, while they do keep coming back. You are constantly fighting the pirates through the game. Their role in the story is basically already done, and like, we've already discovered all of the space pirate lore. There is no more lore to discover. We know everything there is to know about the space pirate operations on planet Ether. So this game is sort of overloaded with story elements. A lot of which are just completely unnecessary. It's kind of funny because, you know, I've often said that Nintendo franchises, they're at their worst when they try to add more plot. You know, the more complicated Nintendo tries to make a story, the worse the game gets. But this wasn't really Nintendo's doing, because we see that, you know, as I mentioned last time, Nintendo was sort of sort of kept a tight leash on Retro Studios for Metroid Prime, but for Metroid Prime 2, it let them do more of their own thing. And it's kind of funny, too, because Retro is on record as saying that they actually pretty much hated the scan mechanic and included it on sufferance from Nintendo, and were stuck with it. And yet, by adding so much more to the story, they made the scanning mechanic so much more central to the game. But they did also make it sort of a scavenger hunt and sort of a way of keeping score, which is why they organized the lore book so much differently in this game. I haven't gone into the lore, but by the way, I'll show you the menu interface for this game too at some point. But now we have the first true boss of the game, Amorbus. Everything we fought. Yeah, so there's this sphere. Everything we fought so far has has been a mini boss. And so here is Amorbus. And we got to try and get a scan off of him. And Amorbus is one of the bosses that has multiple scans. You can see if you look on the right, we only have 50% of the Amorbus scans. Which are... let's see, new creatures entry has been downloaded to your logbook. Amorbus, gigantic tunneling guardians, avoid target as it enters and leaves the earth. Look for disturbances in the ground. Target cannot survive long if its outer shell is cracked. So Amorbus sort of represents a difficulty spike in the game. Especially, a lot of people have trouble with Amorbus the first time, but Amorbus is basically it's yet another highly patternized boss. So the first step is three light ammo breaks off his armor. At which point he will go back on. He'll cling on to the middle sphere and regenerate his armor. Okay, and then targets gain armor, beam weapon, and regenerative powers when fused to the dark sphere. And then they have a weak spot in their mouth, which is vulnerable to concussive force. So Amorbus can nullify the light crystals that protect us, and as we can see, we cannot repair them. The other thing he'll do is sort of his disco ball attack. But once you blast off his... And that all happened kind of quick, I'm sorry. But once you blast off his face armor, he will flop down and attempt to inhale you. At which point, you go into his mouth and drop a bomb. And then you can see we did some of his damage. Amorbus is one of those bosses where the hit point bar is actually kind of a lie. Because even though he does have hit points, it's a very specific sequence of events that basically the only thing that damages him is actually dropping a bomb in his throat. And whoops, I've lost track of where the Amorbuses are. Now, by the way, there are two of them running around the battlefield. And we have to do the same thing. We basically have to blast off their armor. And once we've hit them with three light shots, it is easier to use the charged light beam. It's 3 or 4. But you do burn through your ammo a little bit quicker. The advantage is that the charged light beam seeks them. The disadvantage is that you burn through your energy a lot quicker. And every time you blast off parts of his armor, he drops pickups. And then when they will gather together, and during this phase they are invincible, and they will use these the same sort of lasers that the Ing warriors use. If they strike you, they do a little bit of damage, but they also knock you back out of the safe zones. And then again, we blast him in the face. Wait until he inhales us. Drop a bomb down his throat. And then well, repeat for the other one. And if you, yeah, Reb Gary is saying this is very reminiscent of the Flagra fight. And it does have that sort of similar mechanic of, okay, you did it with one, can you do it with two? Okay, nice, now can you do it with three? Because he's going to drop a third one. And again, the hit points in the Flagra boss fight had nothing to do with actually dealing hit points of damage. Once again, it was just about once you took the proper step, it took a fixed amount of their hit points away. So now there are 3 of them bouncing around the battlefield. I swear there are. Even though, yeah, there's 1, 2, 3. 4 good shots will disable one. This fight was actually a lot tougher on the GameCube version, and I'm not even referring to just how the difficulty of the game overall was sort of increased, but with the free moving Wiimote, it's a lot easier to get a good shot because if you're showing up for this stream for the first time, I am playing this on the veteran difficulty, which is much closer to the difficulty of the original game than normal mode. And you can see we follow the same pattern a third time. 1 charged light beam shot is enough to completely knock the armor off their face. If you didn't pick up on that. Whoops, I got caught on the beacon. And then I really like the boss fights in this game. Not only are they, and also the mini boss fights. This game is much more focused on boss fights and mini boss fights, and it's actually much more focused on combat in general. It's much more action oriented than Prime, and I think I talked about that before. But a lot of the boss fights are more reminiscent of like Zelda boss fights, where they are puzzle bosses, where there's a specific sequence of events to activate. Rather than, I mean, Flagra was like that in Prime 1. But beyond that, most of the bosses were more just a matter of locating and exploiting weak points. Whereas this is, can you figure out the specific sequence of events? And you use a lot more of your tools in the boss fights. In fact, this game probably has what I'm going to call my favorite boss fight in the entire Metroid series in it. But I'm not going to give anything away. Though for those of you who know, it is the boss of the Sanctuary Fortress. That boss fight is awesome. And now, with Amorbus defeated... Oh, R.L. Ritchie... If you can... I'm going to be quiet a second so that you can listen to the music here. It's not really repeating it. Anyway, it does that little beep, 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 which was the music from elevator and item rooms in previous Metroid games. That was the other... There's actually another piece of music that is repeated from an earlier Metroid game. Yeah, Reb Gary is referencing the Sanctuary boss fight and saying that one gave a hard time. That one is a tough set of puzzles to figure out. And now, so here we have, this is the Dark Energy, the Dark Agon Energy Controller. And using the energy collector that is fused to our suit, Samus can actually hold within her 1/3 of all of the energy of an entire planet. Which, Also doesn't actually take up a whole lot of space. And now our final goal is, now that we are charged with the energy of the and now the game feels it needs to remind us. Oh, the yeah, I didn't even talk about the dark suit. Okay, so the dark suit is sort of an interesting upgrade because it drastically reduces the speed at which dark ether drains your life. Um, and it's like one of the things that's not really discussed in too heavily in the game, but it is sort of alluded to, is the fact that Samus's suit can absorb xenotechnology. That like her suit is made by the Chozo, the ancient bird people of planet Zebes and Talon. Though I really don't want to get. Whoops! I drained all my light energy, didn't I? Oh well. No big deal. What is oh oh okay. So Mad Adventurer commented that now that Samus has the dark suit, how there's no way to tell her apart from Dark Samus except because of the beard, which I assume is a reference to the fact that duplicates from evil mirror universes always have goatees, as we learned from the classic Star Trek episode Mirror Mirror. Um, yeah, Reb Gary is correcting me that both the Luminoth and the Chozo technology are adaptable enough to work together, which is really why it works. That the Chozo technology and the Luminoth technology sort of combine in her suit.